Okay. Good morning, everyone. Hi, this is Mr. DiBartolo. I hope you guys are doing well. Beautiful day yesterday. It's a beautiful day today, too. Hope you can get out in your backyard and enjoy it at least somewhat. I know I'm on my balcony all day. So, um, so happy to be here. So happy to be here. So happy you are here. Um, I'll break down what we're doing for today. I'll give you the tiny URL and then we'll get started. To start with, we're going to do our do now, which will be on the Google form. We're going to do irony today. So we're going to do situational irony and then read a story, and then dramatic irony, read a story, and verbal irony. We shouldn't need any help in verbal irony because you guys are already very good at verbal irony. I am sure of that. Okay, and that's pretty much all I have for you today. Um, the tiny URL, in case it is not in the description, is tinyurl.com/VN as in Nancy, M as in man, HLDVNMHLD. Cool. So that's going to be there for you. Should be in the description as well, but just in case. Okay, the Google form is on the first slide. There's a little linky-loo right there in the bottom. Click it and do what you need to do. Okay, let's get started. Our do now. Take 5 minutes. What is one time you were expecting something and the opposite happened? So what is one time that you were expecting something to go a certain way and the opposite happened? This could be personal, this could be from a movie, this could be from a TV show, anything. Anything that you can think of where you're expecting one thing and the opposite happens. So, before we went into lockdown mode, I came back from California, and my girlfriend's like, hey, I'm going to go to Target. I'm going to grab a few things. I'm going to be back. I'm like, cool. No problem. So she comes back. An hour and a half later, what does she have? An entire car full of stuff. The exact opposite of what I expected. So, I want you to think. What is one time that you were expecting something and the opposite happened? You can pause me now, and then when you're done, pick it back up. All right. So I look forward to seeing your stories on the forums. Okay, so we are going to talk about irony today. I'm on slide 3. What exactly is irony? Because that's something that we throw around a lot, but we don't necessarily know what it means. Say, oh man, that's ironic, but do you really know what the word ironic means? And that's why I want to do this lesson, so we don't sound silly in conversations with other people. So, there are 3 different types of irony. I will give you the definition of irony. It's also on the slide. The broad definition of irony is the contrast between the apparent meaning and the suggestion of a different meaning. So, we have what it's supposed to mean, but irony suggests something different. So kind of like our do now. We're expecting something and then the opposite happens, more or less. So something is ironic when we're expecting something and then the opposite occurs. And this will happen. That really lines up really well with situational and verbal. Not so much dramatic, but it does sort of make sense, and you'll see why when we get there. So, let's go through and do all three types of irony. We're first going to start with situational. Situational irony, these are your notes. Also, the irony definition is your notes as well. Situational irony equals the situation turns out different than one would normally expect, although the twist is appropriate. The situation turns out different than one would normally expect. Okay. I have two memes posted here. Let's look at the Rick and Morty one. And for those of you not familiar with Rick and Morty, it's about a grandfather who's like a super genius and his grandson, and they get into all kind of crazy hijinks. The grandfather's like a crazy space guy. It's a funny show, but for some reason they're wearing police uniforms, and the situational irony is, I'm going to have to arrest you, officer. So if I'm looking at it and I see someone in a cop uniform, I'm not going to assume that they're going to be arrested, because that's the norm is that a cop is the one doing the arresting, and what makes it situational irony is that's different from what we normally would expect. The cop's not the one getting arrested. The cop is doing the arresting in most cases. So it makes it a little bit situational irony right there. Okay. Another example is this little seagull on top of a sign that says no seagulls. So if we see a sign that says no seagulls, one would reasonably expect that there are probably no seagulls in that area. What makes a situational irony is that there's a seagull directly on top of that sign. And that twist is appropriate because seagulls don't care. They don't care. They're mean and they're ugly. Okay. So, situational irony is when things turn out differently than what we expect. I guess it would be situationally ironic if an English teacher didn't know how to spell. Because an English teacher should always know how to spell every single word. Those who don't have me, like the kids who have me, know I'm a horrible speller. So it's kind of ironic that an English teacher, you would expect an English teacher to know how to spell every word, but when I'm writing on the whiteboard, I can't spell anything. It's terrible. I'm a terrible speller. Hey, it's okay. So situational is differently than we would normally expect. Okay. So I'm going to give you a story. It's kind of a dark, sad story, but it's also like low-key kind of funny. The story is The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. The gift is about, The Gift of the Magi is about a husband and wife who are both very poor, and they have to get each other Christmas gifts. I'm going to leave it at that. They're poor and they have to get each other Christmas gifts. What I want you to do in the Google slide is I want you to list all the examples of situational irony that you can think of and explain why. There should only be, I can only really think of 3 off the top of my head. The link to the story is on the presentation, and then the question is in the Google form right underneath the do now. So I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to read this. Bless you. I'm going to give you about 20 minutes to read this, and then list all the situational irony that you could think of, and explain why. I want you to use transitions right in there and sentence structures. So use those, because that's what makes good writing, as we've seen before. Okay, so if you need to pause me, you can pause me now, and I'll see you in a bit. Hi, welcome back. I hope that story was like kind of funny, but also like kind of dark. I personally really like that story. I think it's really funny. The end always gets me, where it's like, no, just put our gifts away. It's fine. Okay, so um, there was definitely some situational irony going on there. Um, you would expect the Della to give the band or the chain to her husband, but it's the opposite of what happened. He sold his watch to get the comb, but she cut her hair so that she can buy the watch chain. Oh, it's beautiful. What a mix up. Okay, so let's move forward from here. We have two other forms of irony that we're going to cover. These are pretty, I think these would be pretty straightforward. So let's go to slide number 6. Okay, slide number 6. Dramatic irony. Da, da, da. Dramatic irony equals, these are your notes, so write this down in your notebook. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something or anything the character in the story doesn't. So when the audience knows anything that the character doesn't know in the story. So the audience knows, but the character doesn't. You see this a lot in horror movies. Like, you know the killer is right around the corner because you saw him enter the house, but the family has no idea, and you're like, no, don't go there because the dude's there and he's going to kill you. But because they're idiots, they go and they get killed. So that's a form of dramatic irony because you know something that the characters in the story don't. It's kind of like the audience knows a secret and the character is oblivious or has no idea what's going on. So, we have a picture of the Titanic. What do you know about the Titanic? I'm sure all of you know that the Titanic sunk. It hit an iceberg that it didn't see in the Atlantic, and it sunk. If you didn't know that, there you go. Basically the synopsis of the movie Titanic. We're going to watch a short clip from the movie Titanic. So if you click the actual boat, it is a link to a YouTube video from the movie. Look at me getting all high tech. So pause me, watch the clip. It's like 48 seconds or something. It's real quick. So pause me now. Okay, so Rose counted all of the lifeboats, and she was like, there's no way that's enough lifeboats for all the people on our ship. And he's like, nah, it's fine, no biggie. But you know the ship is gonna sink. So that makes it dramatic irony, because you know something that Rose and the captain dude, I don't know his name because I forget and I've never seen Titanic, but we know the ship is gonna sink. They don't know, so that makes it dramatic irony. Whenever you know something, the character doesn't, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so next slide 7. So, I'm going to ask you to read another short story because I'm mean and I like having you guys read. I know, crazy. So, you're going to read the story of An Hour by Kate Chopin. Really, really beautiful and empowering story. Also, the end takes like a giant twist that none of you are going to be expecting. So, what I want you to do, I want you to list all the examples of dramatic and situational irony that you can think of and explain why. Sorry, I'm getting lit up on my iMessage. So list all the examples of dramatic and situational irony that you can think of and explain why, using sentence structures and transition words. So not only are we doing dramatic, we're also doing situational. So we're building on what we just did before. So I want you to do both. So this might take you a little bit longer, but there's definitely dramatic irony in here, and there's definitely situational irony in here as well. It has both. So, I want you to take about 20 minutes. You can pause me now, and then we will finish up with verbal. Okay, bye. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that story. Kind of crazy that she was like so chill about her husband dying, and then was like happy, opposite of what you were thinking would normally happen, and then the end when he walks in, and she's like, I don't know. I always thought that was pretty cool. Took me for a trip the first time I read it, and I was like, whoa, no way. Okay, so I hope you guys were able to find and list all the dramatic and situational ironies. The last one is verbal irony. Stating one thing but meaning the exact opposite. You guys are all really good at this, so I don't think we need to practice too much. So I have some particular students at Peak. And should I call them out? Oh, who can I make fun of? Okay, so if I see one of my students in my 2B class, and I will say, Lisbeth, you're my favorite student. Do I really mean that she is my favorite student? No, absolutely not. You can tell in my tone that I'm being sarcastic. Or if I say to my girlfriend, you are so pretty, that's stating one thing but meaning the opposite. So if I'm calling a student, I'm saying, you're my favorite student, that means that they're not my favorite student. It's verbal irony, it's sarcasm. It says one thing but means the exact opposite. You guys are all really good at this because you're teenagers and you're all sarcastic little monsters. So I feel that you already know this, but you just didn't realize what the actual definition of it was. So when you state one thing but mean the opposite, that is verbal irony in a nutshell. I'm not going to make you read a short story on that because every time I taught this, the kids were like, oh yeah, that's right, mister, you're so tall. Bless them. Bless my students. So we have situational. Situational irony, when you're expecting one thing, but the opposite thing occurs. Dramatic irony, when the audience knows something that the character in the story doesn't. And verbal irony, stating one thing, but it actually means the opposite. If you can get all three of these forms of irony and use them correctly in your daily life, people will look at you a lot better because people will say, hey, that's ironic, but that actually is nothing to do with irony. It's just a coincidence. So, I am going to do something a little bit fun for your exit ticket. What I want to do is I want you to create 3 examples of each type of irony. So, verbal irony I already gave you with the "You're my favorite student." Um, Dramatic irony, maybe you can think of like a horror movie. That is such an easy example. Or maybe in a soap opera. That's a really good one with secrets. Think about that. And situational, um, I don't know. You expect a really mean character to do something nasty, and it turns out he or she does the right thing. Stuff like that. I want you to create 3 different types and write them in a Google form, and then I'll check it over just to make sure that you guys have understood each type of irony, and that should be it. Be as creative as you want to be with this. I think this could be a little bit of fun in a pretty negative time. Okay, and that's all I have for you guys today. I wish you guys the best. I love you guys very much. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your Thursday. I hope you enjoy it. And I will see you tomorrow, Friday, for my last lesson for you guys. Should have a class party if I could figure that out. Okay, bye. Okay, guys. Love you guys. Have a good one. Bye bye.